everyone, I am back with another video, very similar to the very first PETG and Transparent Warbler one that I did, only this time I am talking about the dyeing process of the materials. So to start with, I took a small sample piece of, this is the PETG that I dyed. I took a small sample piece of PETG and Transparent Warbler. I used the stovetop method of dyeing fabric. You know, like you boil water in the pot on the stove, then you add a little bit of the either liquid or powder dye to it, mix it up, and then you drop in your fabric, or in this case, your plastic, and you usually let it sit for about a half an hour in the hot water. For dye, I used the RIT Liquid Teal. It's a really good dye. I find that liquid is a lot easier to work with when dyeing things, not just plastics, but also fabrics. Because with powders, sometimes it, as much as you try, you might not always be able to, get it fully mixed, and it will leave a little bit of like spotting, or not spotting, but deposits on the fabric where the dye didn't get completely absorbed. So basically what I did was I took a pot, biggest pot that I have. I kept it on the boiling. Yeah, I kept it boiling on the heater, on the stove, the entire time I was dyeing. Probably not the best idea, but I really wasn't sure if taking it off the heat would be a good idea, because where I live, the water tends to cool down extremely quickly as soon as you take it off the heat. So to start with, the PETG, it kept its shape pretty well because this was obviously a little bit warped by the hot water, but for the most part it stayed transparent. I didn't rinse it, which I probably should have done as well, but overall I'm really happy with the color I got from this. It came out more like the color of a Sprite bottle, or even maybe like a Mountain Dew bottle, like that shade of green more than teal. You can see it a little bit better in front of the bottle, in front of the white. But overall, I'm happy with the color. This was only 5 minutes of dyeing, or soaking rather, so if I had kept it in for the full half hour, like the directions on the bottle say to for fabric, I'm sure that the color would have been much more saturated. And the same thing with the Transparent Warbler. This is a little bit more of a true teal, like a greenish, bluish teal, than the PETG came out. Obviously, the shape also got a lot more warped. PETG is a bit more high heat capable in my experience, but both of them did come out fairly well. My advice would be to probably shape your plastic if you're going to shape it into something other than, just a straight sheet to go on top of something like LEDs, or keep some sort of transparency in your prop or armor. Just shape it first, because otherwise, yeah, and take it off of the heat. So not that those two materials aren't great, but I wanted to also see how plastic ornaments would dye. Those of you who are familiar with some of my past work, specifically my Jana Proudmoore costumes, would remember that I used plastic ornaments to do the arcane orbs with hers, or those who have seen my friend Little Sparks cosplay for her Master Chromie, or her Chromie skin rather, from Heroes of the Storm. She used plastic ornament domes for her LEDs, for the shoulder pieces. And so what she did was she painted it very carefully on the inside with, I believe, a couple of different paints. And in order to keep the color even, she just kind of like moved it around. And I was like, that is really time consuming, really dedicated. I personally prefer to either use clear Mod Podge with glitter that I put it in myself, like I did for my first arcane orb for Jaina, or for like my last version, which was the Battle Mage version I did for BlizzCon 2015, designed by the artist Fernone. What I did for that was I took spray paint, clear glitter spray paint, spray painted that because I wanted a little bit more of a subtle sparkle. I didn't want like super in your face blue and purple sparkle. And then I after that, I went in with a different spray paint. I was very carefully, just spray painted that with a sky blue. But for Blood Queen Lanethel, she has a few little like round gems in her helm, and I was like, well, I really want the gem colors to be consistent throughout the entire costume. And so for the ones that are hanging like off of her belt and are on her bracers and in her shoulders, and like the diamond shaped ones in her helm, I'm going to be using Pet G to do those custom shapes. And I wanted to keep the color consistent, so I decided, well, just use the plastic ornaments, see how they take to the dye. They don't take so well to the dye. This is what happened to the two different sizes that I decided to try. They not only take to the dye pretty poorly after being in there for 5 minutes, but it also extremely warps the shape. So I do not recommend trying to dye these. If you're going to do it, like I said, my friend Little Sparks just kind of carefully moved the paint around so it wouldn't drip, and so she didn't have any brush strokes or anything. Or you could do what I did and just use spray paint. But dyeing it with the fabric dye, really not a good idea. And so a lot of cosplayers have been talking about how they diffuse their LEDs with those really cool plastics, or packing materials rather, that are kind of like a styrofoamy, I guess, or some kind of webbing foam. And so I was like, I wonder if you can tint those to suit, the color, because not everyone is going to have colored LEDs, even if, that's really kind of like what you're going for. And so I decided to try the thicker one that you can get both of these at like any supply store, packing store, Amazon, whatever. And I didn't actually put these in for the full 5 minutes, I will admit that, because I was worried about them melting too far. I did put them in for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of a tint there, not too much. I don't recommend trying to tint these because they will melt very easily. But overall, they're great to have anyway. They do help diffuse LEDs. They make a pretty good backing behind, something like the Pet G or the transparent Worbla, in order to bring out a little bit more of the color of what you're doing. But don't dye them. They're not worth dyeing. They're really not worth dyeing. But I guess that's pretty much it. If you're going to be using some sort of like clear plastic, it does help diffuse the LEDs anyway. But if you want to use the packing material as well, that's great. If you're going to use like a plastic pre-shaped orb, use the spray paint or some kind of paint to do it. Don't dye it. I guess that's it for this video. If you like what you see and you are not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot and helps me keep creating these videos. Give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Also, your support on Patreon, if you're not a patron already and you'd like to help me pay for the supplies for more of these videos and these experiments, it's greatly appreciated. These videos will continue to happen, but my patrons are the ones who get the first look at what's coming up in the video, and they help me get to decide what the next video is going to be. So if you can throw even just $1 a month my way for that, I would be very grateful for it. So until next time, be safe, take care of yourself, be excellent to everybody, and enjoy the video, share it with your friends, give me a thumbs up, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye!